Today I thought I'd share something that I've been wanting to try for a while. Luciano has a 250, a more modern version of this bike, but the handlebars are very similar. And I noticed it looks like, the two things it looks like they might be a little higher in height, and also the angle might be a little up. See, these are really angled down like clip-ons are. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the part off the spare bike. Of course, I just happen to have a spare bike. And I want to take one of the handlebars off, and I want to take it up to Luciano's where he has a 250 Ninja. And these look like but I don't know until I measure it. But this is just one thing you could do. I wanted to show how I would go about doing this. Because here's what happens. A lot of times you change the handlebars on a motorcycle. In this case, I put Renthal bars. They're very slightly different, but the angle back, the angle up, there can be very subtle changes that change the whole feel of the bike. In this case, one of the things, see, I have spacers that I made underneath here that have raised the whole piece up, and that's fine. But as you can see, if I turn this all the way, I could still go out an inch. It would even be better in my feeling, or at least if I was up an inch, it was too high, I could take one of the spacers out. I have 3 or 4 spacers in there. So I wanted to just share this thought, and this is basically one of my pet things. Is the R1 has handlebars. I've had several different sets of handlebars. The FZ has several different sets of handlebars. Of course, it's all in the eye of the beholder, what you feel comfortable riding. And to be honest, even the Kawasaki, I've looked for different ways of raising the handlebars up. That's kind of a unique mount that they have on there. So that probably would be the lowest priority. But this one, if these parts fit, or if they're close, it's going to really be, well, it'll be what the doctor ordered. So here's the spare parts off the track bike, the spare bike I should call it. Number one, if the holes don't line up, it's not the end of the world, because I could move the holes, I could machine this a little bit, there's a lot of things I can do. But here's what I'm trying to decide if it's the same. And this part, it looks visually, the last time I was up by Luciano's, it looks an inch higher, but I don't know if it is until I measure it. So I'm going to take, in fact, I'm going to make sure I take it right now. I'll take my caliper so I can actually measure how high that's going to be. Of course, I want to know the total height from the deck to where your hands are going to be. And now in this case, if this is higher by an inch, but these angle up like that, it's even better. If it's an inch higher, but they angle more, it's a draw. So I need to know from the deck height out here. Maybe I'll make a little cardboard template so I can just lay it over the other part and get an idea of how that's going to be. Again, this is the kind of thing that I really like to do. It's replacing a stock part with another stock part. Hopefully something you can find on eBay. If not, I got to buy them from Kawasaki, of course. But something that would be a nice addition to the bike and give me a totally adjustable handlebar for almost no work at all. Now, for sure, every bike has been a different adventure, and this is the part I wanted to make. A lot of people, including Vince, I know, among other people, as you get older, you want to have a more comfortable bike. You want to get rid of the clip-ons. So by having these handlebars, a couple of things to keep in mind. A lot of times you can just take the throttle cable and reroute it. In the case of this, you can reroute it to the other side of the fork leg. You don't have to buy a longer throttle cable. In the case of the master cylinder, in this bike, I didn't even have to buy a longer hose. It had a longer hose. I just had to reroute it. It used to reroute down around there like a snake. So, but every bike is unique. And in this case, I've used RD from an RD 400 risers. The holes were already in the triple tree. And I know this is one of the little quirky things for young guys. You don't have to worry about this. When you get old, you're going to want more comfortable handlebars. Now this bike is totally stock, and for the track, this actually was our track bike for a couple of years, one of the track bikes, and it was perfect for the track where you're doing 15-20 minute sessions. On the street, out of the question. After a 3-hour ride, handlebars were uncomfortable. I can see on the Kawasaki, these are mounted in some kind of rubber grommets here. I never even took this apart yet. These are almost comfortable. They're very close to being where I'd want. But if I could rise them up, or if Kawasaki made a gizmo for that, it would be nice. You can always put your finger down underneath. I could raise them. I could make a spacer and make it a 1/4 of an inch higher. But a 1/4 of an inch isn't really worth it. I want like an inch would be nice. Inch, maybe even an inch and a half when I get to do this bike. And believe it or not, the best set of risers I've ever found come on a stock RD400. Sometimes you can get them off eBay. These are ones Luciano got me some off eBay. I've used them on other bikes. They work perfect, and then you can mount any handlebars you want, and you just need to deal with rerouting the cables, or in the worst scenario, you have to buy a longer, usually it's the master cylinder, the brake line needs to be an inch or two longer. But other than that, having all these choices is really a big thing for me. It can change the whole enjoyment level of riding a bike. If after 2 or 3 hours of riding, you're not exhausted, or your back doesn't hurt, or God forbid something else. And in this case of this bike, I just need to see how high these are. And I'm going to go make myself a little template right now. Now what this little pattern will do is it allows me to measure easily the deck height up to the top, which isn't the critical thing. The critical thing is to where your hand goes and that angle. But this will be one thing. I'll bring this up to Luciano's with me. I'll bring that and just try to make a decision if this is worth doing. And even if it's not worth doing, at least I'll know this is not one of the choices. Then the other choice would be to make longer spacers, and in that case I have to get much longer bolts, but that's even that's another choice. But each time I've raised the handlebars on this bike, I've enjoyed riding the bike more. And there's been no downside at all. So we're up by Luciano's to look in his 2 sheds full of motorcycles. He's got the 250 Ninja up there, and we're going to try to see if these handlebars are going to be an improvement over what we have. So the first thing I can see before I even try to take a measurement is these angle up, which is obviously what we're looking for. Mine angle down, but I made a piece of cardboard with the angle so I can see what that angle is. So even without measuring, if I hold this even, you can see it's at least, but I'll do a measurement, it's at least with the 2 pieces on the base. I've won on both ends of this, that the angle is better, and this is a lot higher, but I'm going to measure it with the caliper. Now the height on these is 371, 240 to 371. It's an inch and a half higher. Pretty much an inch and a half. So I've got an inch and a half of rise and less of an angle. Now the only thing less is if the bolts line up. And then the last thing is, unless we come up here and steal these from Luciano, where the hell are we going to buy a pair of these? Well, Bob Navola's got a pair of them too. So these bolts are in. I'm recording this for my own information. They're in from the edge, center the bolt to the edge. And I did the same calculation on this one. Looks exactly the same. The spacing of the 2 bolts is the same. And even though it's a little bit wider, that looks like that would line up fine. So everything here looks like it was worth the trip up here to see. It looks like we got a good modification. But again, we got to find a place to buy these. That's the problem. And of course, the fallback is to buy them from Kawasaki at list price. Now the reason I think this video is worth sharing and worth making, of course, because a lot of people would not think of, in other words, and I'm one of them, what I originally thought was when I wanted to put the higher handlebars on, I would use risers and regular handlebars. Well, that's still a choice because I don't know that I'm going to be able to buy these parts. But I still have the choice of putting risers on. But in the case of my Ninja, I've got a cover piece that goes on here that I'd have to modify. So the easiest of the two things, basically the easiest thing would be if I can find those clip-ons on eBay. If I can, or if somebody would send me the link. And I got to see what year this bike is. So it definitely was a trip worth coming up here for. And now the hard part, finding the parts. And that will be a really nice modification. And by doing it this way, I don't even need to buy longer bolts. So after getting back from Luciano's, we know for sure now that these are going to be a nice upgrade. They're going to fit. They're going to have a nicer angle, a less of a raked angle. The bolt pattern fits, and they're going to be 1.5 inches higher. And that's why, if you just watch this video, I'm going to give you some ideas of some of the ways you can raise the handlebars on your bike with normal risers, or in this case with these modified clip-on risers. Or you can take the clip-ons off and just put regular handlebars, which we've done several times again. But it's all about having some good ideas, and I hope you've gotten a couple of good ideas out of this video. So thanks for watching, and go get those handlebars up a little bit higher. When you get older, you'll be glad they're higher. Thanks for watching.